Imagine spending roughly $250,000 on an employment contract that might be, legally impossible to execute
Right.
and physically impossible to deliver. Not to mention, it could completely destroy your company's reputation in its most vital market.
Yeah, which is exactly what we saw happen this week in the world of global franchise cricket.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really interesting stack of sources ranging from hardcore sports strategy reports to intense political analysis.
And it all centers on one historical and honestly highly controversial draft pick.
Exactly. So we're unpacking the 190,000 pound, which is roughly 255,000 US dollar signing of Pakistani mystery spinner Abrar Ahmed by the Indian-owned Sunrisers Leeds franchise for the UK's 100-ball league, the 100.
Our mission today is to really figure out how a single sports transaction basically collided with international geopolitics, team strategy, massive digital outrage, and, a ton of administrative red tape.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we get to the international incidents and the suspended social media accounts, we really need to understand the underlying mechanics of this deal.
Yeah, the actual cricket logic.
Right. Because if you look at the tactical breakdown, this was not some calculated political stunt designed to make headlines.
No, not at all.
It was a desperate high-stakes maneuver driven purely by supply and demand on the auction floor.
Yeah, and the coverage of the Sunrisers Leeds auction strategy really reveals that head coach Daniel Vettori had a very specific blueprint.
Okay.
And it relied heavily on securing the English spin bowler Adil Rashid. Because in franchise cricket, building a roster is like this delicate balancing act of budgets and passport quotas.
Right, because of the strict limits on overseas players.
Exactly. Rashid is a known commodity, highly effective, and crucially, as an English player, he wouldn't take up one of those limited overseas slots.
But then they lost him.
Right. They lost him to another team, Southern Brave. And when that happened, Vettori's entire defensive strategy just collapsed in real time. He was basically forced to abandon his domestic plan and desperately look to the overseas market for a world-class spinner.
It honestly reminds me of a really high-stakes game of Jenga.
Oh, totally.
Sunrisers Leeds had this solid tactical structure planned, but the moment someone pulled out that Adil Rashid block,
The whole thing shakes.
yeah, the team was forced to urgently reach for the Abrar Ahmed block just to keep their strategy from toppling over on the pitch. They had to stabilize the roster completely regardless of the noise it was going to cause outside the stadium.
And, when you look at the overseas market, Abrar Ahmed's statistics make him a neon flashing target.
Seriously. We're talking about the world number 3 T20 international bowler.
Right.
He has 52 wickets in 38 matches at this incredibly stingy economy rate of 6.6 some.
And that economy rate is the operative metric here. In a hyper-condensed format like the 100, batters are incentivized to take massive risks.
They're trying to hit boundaries on practically every delivery.
Exactly. So having a bowler who mathematically restricts opponents to under 7 runs per set of deliveries is, it's the equivalent of gold dust.
Yeah.
But Vettori wasn't just relying on a spreadsheet. The scouting process incorporated direct feedback from Australian players who had recently faced Abrar in a bilateral series.
Oh, wow. What did they say?
Well, the consensus from the Aussie camp was that Abrar was exceptionally tricky to face. They highlighted his ability to deceive batters not just in the middle overs, but also in the power play when fielding restrictions heavily favor the batting side.
Right, and that specific versatility is basically a strict requirement for the pitch at Headingley, which is the Sunrisers' home ground.
Yeah, Headingley is notoriously tough for spinners.
Exactly. It's traditionally known for pace and bounce, so you need someone with exceptional variations in flight and speed, and Abrar brings that mystery element. So pulling that specific Abrar Ahmed Jenga block completely solved Vettori's tactical nightmare on the field.
But solving that on-field problem instantly exposed this glaring legal and geopolitical contradiction in global franchise sports.
Yeah, it really did.
The moment Sunrisers Leeds committed that 190,000 pounds, they breached a 17-year-old boundary.
So to understand the gravity of this, we really have to look at the mechanisms of the shadow ban that has existed since 2008.
Right, following the tragic Mumbai attacks.
Exactly. After that, Pakistani players were effectively barred from participating in the Indian Premier League, the IPL.
And as the IPL owners grew their financial power over the years, they started buying up international franchises, right? Expanding into leagues like the SA20 in South Africa or the ILT20 in the UAE.
And that shadow ban basically went global with them. It became this unwritten corporate mandate. If a franchise operates with Indian ownership, Pakistani players are simply bypassed in the draft.
Yeah, it's an enforcement of domestic political sentiment across international borders through sheer corporate synergy.
But the UK legal framework is actively hostile to those kinds of unwritten discriminatory mandates.
Extremely hostile. Prior to the auction, the England and Wales Cricket Board, the ECB, they actually anticipated this exact collision of interests.
Wait, they sent a warning out beforehand, right?
Yeah, they preemptively sent an email to all 8 franchises issuing a stark legal warning. The directive explicitly stated that excluding players from the draft pool based on their nationality is a direct violation of UK anti-discrimination laws.
Wow.
The ECB drew a very hard line, demanding that selections must be based entirely on cricketing performance and team needs.
So what does this all mean for the franchise itself? Because they're basically trapped in an impossible corporate tug of war here.
They really are.
They are bound by UK employment law on one side, which legally mandates they consider Pakistani players on pure merit, but they're commercially tied to Indian market sentiments on the other side, where their core fan base and primary revenue streams live.
It is a complete logistical nightmare for a privately owned sports team. And you can see the institutional anxiety all the way up to the highest levels of Indian cricket administration.
Oh, yeah. Like when BCCI Vice President Rajiv Shukla was forced to address the signing.
His response was a masterclass in jurisdictional dodging.
Truly. He explicitly distanced the Indian Cricket Board from the Sunrisers' Leeds decision, stating that the BCCI cannot intervene because overseas leagues are, quote, not in our domain.
They completely washed their hands of the situation. It's a very calculated legal and PR strategy. I mean, the BCCI holds immense power, but stepping into UK jurisdiction to dictate employment practices, that crosses a legal line they clearly have no interest in testing.
Right. They protected the IPL's domestic bubble while just leaving the Sunrisers franchise to fend for itself in the UK.
And looking at how this is being covered across our stack of articles, we really have to separate the raw political anger from the sporting analysis at this point.
Definitely. And, we should pause here to be very clear with you, the listener. We are simply imparting what the texts show about the historical backdrop and the fans' reactions.
Exactly. We're not taking sides or endorsing any of the political views driving this controversy. We're just impartially reporting the coverage we found in the sources.
Right. And the data clearly shows that while the BCCI maintained that pragmatic distance we just talked about, the fan base immediately mobilized.
Oh, the digital explosion was instantaneous.
The announcement of Abrar's signing sparked immediate, intense outrage across India. The hashtag Boycott SRH started trending within hours.
And the vitriol wasn't just general frustration. There were highly targeted attacks aimed directly at Sunrisers' CEO, Kavya Moran, across multiple social media platforms.
Because fans view franchise owners as extensions of national pride. And in their eyes, the corporate entity had basically betrayed that pride.
It escalated so much that the official Sunrisers Leeds X account was temporarily suspended and taken completely offline amid the wave of user reports.
Which is wild for an official sports team account.
What's fascinating here is the specific anatomy of the fans' anger. I mean, it wasn't merely a reaction to a Pakistani player entering an Indian-owned ecosystem. The animosity stems directly from Abrar Ahmed's own digital footprint and his past on-field behavior.
Yeah, modern athletes' social media histories are now heavily vetted geopolitical liabilities. You aren't just drafting a bowler's economy rate, you're drafting their entire public history.
Right. And the coverage highlights 2 very specific incidents that acted as a dog whistle for the fan outrage.
First, in 2025, Abrar posted a selfie on social media with the caption, "Fantastic evening tea."
Which to anyone outside the Indian subcontinent just sounds like a completely harmless lifestyle post.
Exactly. But in the context of India-Pakistan relations, that specific phrase is heavily loaded. It's widely viewed by Indian fans as a direct mockery of the captured Indian Air Force pilot Abhinandan Varthaman.
Right, because during a military conflict in 2019, the pilot was filmed saying the tea is fantastic while in Pakistani custody.
Yeah. So Abrar's post turned a simple cup of tea into a perceived geopolitical taunt.
And that digital footprint was basically compounded by his physical actions during international competition. The texts detail his use of a controversial head tilt celebration against Indian batters during the Asia Cup.
Yeah, and to the viewer at home, this wasn't seen as standard sporting aggression. It was perceived as a targeted taunt aimed directly at Indian fans and security forces.
So these accumulated incidents transformed Abrar from just a simple overseas draft prospect into a highly polarizing figure representing national tensions.
And we know this kind of targeted digital pressure campaign can actually force corporate entities to fold. I mean, we just saw this exact playbook work recently.
Oh, with Mustafizur Rahman.
Yes. Kolkata Knight Riders, an IPL franchise, bought the Bangladeshi fast bowler for a massive sum. But shortly after the auction, intense public backlash erupted in India over reports of violence against Hindus in Bangladesh.
And the public pressure mounted so rapidly that the BCCI ultimately stepped in, and KKR was forced to terminate Mustafizur's contract and release him before he could bowl a single ball.
Exactly. So Sunrisers fans are looking at that Mustafizur precedent, hitting repeat, and assuming that enough digital warfare will force the Leeds franchise to cancel Abrar's contract as well.
The franchise may have successfully navigated the tactical demands of the draft in London, but they are currently losing a massive public relations war in their primary commercial market.
Right.
And the irony of this entire situation is that despite the millions of rupees committed, the legal threats from the ECB, and all the trending hashtags, Abrar Ahmed might not physically be able to step onto a plane to Yorkshire anyway.
And that is the ultimate twist in this story. Because no player in modern franchise cricket can just pack their bags and play in a foreign league whenever they want. They require a no objection certificate or an NOC.
Right, from their home cricket board.
It's basically an administrative lever of control that national boards use to prevent talent drain and manage player workloads. In this case, Abrar needs that vital piece of paper signed by the Pakistan Cricket Board, currently led by Chairman Mohsin Naqvi.
And the PCB is staring at a massive scheduling nightmare right now.
Oh, total collision.
Yeah, the global cricket calendar is incredibly congested. Pakistan is scheduled to play a 2-test bilateral series against the West Indies, running from July 15th to August 7th.
And the 100 tournament runs from July 21st to August 16th.
So the overlap is absolute.
Now, theoretically, the PCB could spare him, because the breakdown of Pakistan's test squad indicates that Abrar is not their primary spinner for the longest format of the game.
Right. Bowlers like Noman Ali and Sajid Khan typically take those starting spots.
So if you apply pure sporting logic, the PCB should grant the NOC, allow their backup spinner to gain valuable experience in English conditions, and let him secure a massive payday.
But pure sporting logic rarely dictates administrative decisions in this region. The PCB has actively deployed really hardball tactics recently regarding player availability.
Like what happened after the Asia Cup.
Exactly. Following a brutal defeat in the Asia Cup, the board aggressively canceled NOCs for several major players. The strategic goal was punitive, but also restorative, forcing their star athletes to focus entirely on domestic cricket and national recovery rather than jetting off to lucrative franchise leagues.
Right.
And because of this recent precedent, the analysis currently rates Abrar's chances of actually obtaining his NOC as a 50-50 coin toss.
I mean, think about the immense psychological weight of that situation for the player.
Oh, it'd be awful.
How does an athlete mentally balance the demands of their national board against a truly life-changing financial opportunity? Because this contract is worth £190,000. When converted, that translates to roughly 7 crore Pakistani rupees. The financial data explicitly states that this single 4-week tournament contract completely dwarfs what Abrar could ever hope to earn, playing an entire season in his local domestic competition, the Pakistan Super League.
It's the definition of generational wealth for a cricketer.
Exactly.
It's dangled right in front of him, yet it's hidden behind a labyrinth of international politics, fan outrage, UK labor laws, and a single piece of administrative paper that his boss might simply refuse to sign just to prove a point about domestic loyalty.
It really highlights the growing tension between private franchise capital and traditional national team control.
Yeah.
It's just staggering when you zoom out and look at the whole picture. I mean, to summarize the chain reaction we've unpacked today, a sports team in Leeds simply needed a spin bowler who could perform effectively during the middle overs of a match.
Just a basic tactical need.
Right. And attempting to fill that single tactical vacancy triggered an international diplomatic tension.
Yep.
Forced corporate executives to navigate a legal minefield between UK anti-discrimination laws and Indian commercial pressures. spark a vicious social media war fueled by military memes, and ultimately the entire deal might be completely derailed by a scheduling conflict for a test series in the Caribbean.
The complexity of the modern sporting landscape is undeniably chaotic. But there's a final thought I want to leave you, the listener, to mull over.
Oh,
Yeah, it's subtly hinted at in our stack of research. While the digital world is screaming about Abrar Ahmed in the UK, the texts briefly note an entirely different reality playing out across the Atlantic.
what's happening over there?
Well, other high-profile Pakistani players, specifically Mohammad Amir and Imad Wasim, have actively been playing for Indian-owned franchise teams in leagues located in the USA and the Caribbean.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and they have been doing it quietly, without generating massive political firestorms or trending hashtags.
Oh, wow. So they are essentially flying completely under the radar, cashing checks from Indian corporate entities while the rest of the cricket world argues over unwritten rules.
Exactly. And this raises a fascinating, broader question about the future of international sports. Could the rapid, relentless expansion of private, global franchise leagues ultimately force a backdoor normalization of cross-border sports relations?
That's a great point.
We might not see this normalization happen through careful, deliberate diplomacy between rival nations. It might happen simply because a franchise team on the other side of the world desperately needs to take a wicket.
And global capital will always ruthlessly seek out the best available talent, regardless of the passport they hold.
Exactly.
Wow. If the global market demands the talent loudly enough, the geopolitical borders might eventually just have to blur.
That is an incredible thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the headlines, keep looking for the hidden strategies driving the news, and remember, sometimes the most complicated international battles start with a simple, tactical decision on a draft board. Catch you next time.